Very good morning. Let me just have a look on like what have been completed because it's almost 4 to 5 days I'm taking this class. Uh, all right. I remember that I started with security and I've given you the overview. All right. Yes, got it. Fine. So if you remember, let me have a quick revision of 1 minute, 2 minutes. See, last lecture, what we have seen was like, I've given you an overview about one of the thing that, there's only one standard object. There's only one table for every standard object rather in your database.com server. That actually means is like, there's only one account and one case and one contact and every standard object is only one table. And moreover, this table is, we are accessing the same table from every edition. So whether you are, here it's not important that, whether you are using a paid version like enterprise or maybe an unlimited or a professional edition or a group edition, or if you are using a free edition like this one, the developer edition or the 30 days trial account. So whatever the version you are using of the Salesforce, whatever the edition you are using with the Salesforce, whenever you are using any standard object, you actually is retrieving the data, you are accessing it from that same table. So this actually means there's only one table for every standard object. But then how Salesforce would distinguish? Because now when we came to know about this, obviously, immediately to this one important, one fact that would come into our mind would be like, uh, is it going to be happen that data is going to mix up of different organization, or is there is any threat to the integrity of data? So that is not even possible. The reason behind this, I told you, is like, then every organization have its own organization ID. When you go to the setup menu and when you go to the company profile, and if you make a click on a company information, there you can see that this is your organization ID, which actually is an 18-digit character, 18-digit number, sorry. But here you would be only going to see the first 15 digits. If you wanted to find the rest of the last three characters, that is something which is hidden, although, but yeah, there's a way in Salesforce. You have to fire certain queries, and by that query, we could even find out the whole 18-digit ID of an organization. So, by the way, every organization have an organization ID that always starts with 00D. And this is something which we are learning right now is very important. All right, everyone, please pay attention. Please concentrate, and please, if it would be a good thing, guys, if you make a small note of this, because I think that is not there inside these notes. All right, so this thing is probably is not in the notes, and whatever we are discussing is really important. So you can make a small note of this where you can write it somewhere, and then so every organization is like, is having an 18-digit ID, which is called as organization ID. And this organization ID always starts with 00D. Irrespective of what edition you are using, it would always starts with 00D. So whether you are using a free version or maybe if you are using a paid version, let me try to show you something. So even though if you are using a paid version of this, in that case as well, the organization ID would always start with 00D. So what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to make a login into one of my which actually is a production or and a paid version of Enterprise Edition. Let me try to show you that. Meanwhile, I have also discussed one concept of multi-tenancy. Now, see, there's one common question. Maybe they could ask this in interview. Why there are governor limits in Salesforce? Why there are the governor limits in Salesforce? We have studied like, We have studied this so many times with related to so many different, what to say, for so many different reasons. Like if you remember that, the first when you created an application, inside the organization there were already some standard application. You created like 208 HR management in the Merck Corporation. So from the day one itself, what the first thing what you have created in the Salesforce was how to create an application. That time itself, I told you that when you are using a developer edition, at maximum you can create 10 custom applications, not more than that. The second thing what you have learned is like how we can create the objects, the custom objects. They were already standard objects, but according to your business need, we understand like how we can create the custom object. So, I mean, in that perspective, we have created the hiring manager and the positions, candidates, and few more custom objects. That time also we came to know about like, with this developer edition, I could maximum create 400 custom objects, but in real time, with the unlimited and enterprise, I could create, if I'm not wrong, I could create, I think 2000 custom objects, if I'm not wrong. I'll have to revise this once again. Similarly, no, I think I could create 800 custom objects. I think I'm a little bit unsure about this. And similarly, when we learn how we can create fields inside the object, that time also we have discussed. So there was like, every time you came to know about something called as a governor limit. This all restrictions, whatever has been given to us from the Salesforce. This is something called as a governor limit, all right? So first, why there is a governor limit in Salesforce? Whenever you wanted to create something, you are under something like, I could create this up to certain limit. Why there is a governor limit? So I'm going to talk about that. First of all, let me try to show you. So I was telling you, let's go to the company information. This one actually is an enterprise edition, by the way, a paid version. As you can see, it's an enterprise edition. But even it's an enterprise edition, even it's an paid version, you can see the organization ID starts with 00D. So that was one of the point I wanted to mention. That even though it's a paid version, even though it's a free version, the organization, first of all, in Salesforce, every organization have an organization ID, that to be of 18 digits. And every organization ID, it always starts with 00D, right? Now let's come back to the discussion what we were having. See, Salesforce is purely built upon something called as a multi-tenant architecture, right? Salesforce is purely built upon a multi-tenant architecture. This one. Now, what does this multi-tenant actually means? I mean, when you try to dig out the answer, when you try to find out the answer, why there is a governor limit. And this is going to be the most common interview question. Even I also used to ask this, though I take L2 round. When I take L2 rounds, I mean, usually in L2 round, it should be like more technical. But when I would take it, my, my aim is not to evaluate you more on technical part. I would rather would like to see whether you are having the basic understandings of Salesforce or not. So even this is something, what I used to ask in interview, why there are governor limits in Salesforce. When you create an application, you'll have to follow that. When you create some object, you'll have to see for that. When you create certain fields inside the object, you will have to see for that. And this is not just with the programmings. This is not just with the out-of-box functionalities. This is even with the development. Later on, I mean, after this admin would be over, we would going to start with the concepts of development. That time also, you're going to see a certain governor limits over there as well. I mean, when you are trying to fetch something from the database, you are going to use an SQL query, Salesforce Object Query Language. There's a governor limit. You cannot use more than 100 SQL queries in a single transaction. When you are fetching the data from the database, you could maximum fetch up to 50,000 records, not more than that. If you wanted to do it more, there's another way. But with the SQL queries, it is something like you could only fetch 50,000 records. Now you would also going to learn something called as a DML statements, data manipulation language, where you would be learning those statements which would allow you to directly interact with database.com. And you could insert the data over there. You could update a record. You could delete a record. You could undelete a record. You could merge a record. But then there would be certain limits you are going to, again, the governor limits. I can maximum use 150 DML statements in a program in one transaction, not more than that. Using one DML, you could maximum fetch. You could, using one DML, you could maximum manipulate 10,000 records, not more than that. Everywhere there would be a governor limits. The maximum CPU utilization time is 10,000 milliseconds. The maximum callouts that you can make is always 10. There are so many governor limits, and by the way, we all have to learn every of them. So it is something, guys, that when you are working inside Salesforce, whether you are doing a non-programming, I mean, you're developing something with all those features, what you have learned so far, the kind of out-of-box functionalities, what we used to call as the configuration part of Salesforce. Like if I wanted to create an application, I certainly won't require to do any programming. If I wanted to create a custom object like hiring manager positions, whatever, I certainly wouldn't require to have any programming. If I wanted to create a field, I wanted to create an approval process, I wanted to create a business automation, I wanted to create an analytics part like reports and dashboard, I wanted to design an event, I wanted to design a task. There are so many out-of-box functionalities of the Salesforce. So if you are if you are constructing anything with configuration feature, or if you are constructing anything with the customizations where the programmings are involved, so either you are developing something with configuration, or maybe with customization, or maybe a sandwich of both of them, where few of the functionalities are being created from the non-coding and few of them are being coded. We always work, we inside the Salesforce, we always work under one certain boundary, and that boundary is called as governor limits. Now, why there is a governor limit? This is one of the basic questions. So every one of us should understand why there's a governor limit. Why it's not like if we can use everything. No. So basically, the answer to this question, I mean, the proper way, I think, how to answer this. See, I'll tell you one thing. I'm not extending my lecture. I'm just trying to help you out. Whenever you give an answer, you know, how you start with your answer would tell the interviewer that whether you know this or not. So if you start it like Salesforce is purely built upon a multi-tenant architecture, he would get case ko pata hai. Immediately just by saying this, उसे पता चल जाएगा कि आप बिल्कुल सही directions में आगे बढ़ रहे हो. And you actually know the answer why there is a governor limit. Salesforce is purely built upon a multi-tenant architecture. I probably have that diagram with us. I'm not sure. Multi-tenant. I don't have. But anyways, even if I try to Google this, right, you can do that. Multi-tenant. Multi-tenant architecture of Salesforce. See, if I would try to get few of the images with this, there's no better image which I could make you a discussion on that. Let's forget this. Anyways, I'll try to do it from this one only. So what does it means by a multi-tenant? First of all, tenant. All right, this word tenant actually means organizations. You are one of the organization, right? You are one of the organization. This is one of the, we used to call this as org. What is this word org? It's a short form. It's a short form of organization. You open an account, you create an account that becomes an org, all right? This org actually refers to tenant. There are multiple tenants, there are multiple orgs inside one server instance. There are so many servers, although that you know, they are in 3 different regions: Asia Pacific, EMEA region, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, and North America. I mean, US region, America region. There are so many servers over there in different countries, in different regions. Now, inside every server, it's not just one organization, it's multiple organizations which are sitting inside a server. How many of them could be accommodated? Roughly, it's 8,000. Roughly, approximately, it's 8,000 different organizations. Now, they could be accommodated in a single server. So when it's something like, I could say that this is one of the resource. This is one of the resource. What kind of resource? IaaS, infrastructure as a service. You remember these terminologies? You should remember this. You should never forget the basics of Salesforce. All right. You should never forget all of the basic things what we have studied during our early days in the training. Different types of clouds, different types of services, cloud computing, all of the basic things what we have learned. You should always remember those. So this is what it's an IaaS service, infrastructure as a service. As a part of infrastructure, we learn Salesforce provide you internal servers of everything, file server, database server, all right, everything. So it's like in a single server instance, there are multiple tenants, there are multiple organizations. So this is the reason it is called as multi-tenant architecture. And when there are multiple organizations, if they are accessing the resources, every one of them has given a fixed portion that you could, if you wanted to access something, for example, if you wanted to access database.com, maybe a force.com or anything, maybe you are accessing Apex runtime engine, then you would going to get only that portion which is reserved for you, which has been allotted to you, which is being accessed by you, and you cannot access any another's portion. So this is something like in one building, if there are multiple families they are living, and there is something, a resource which has been allotted to that building would be going to be get shared among all of those families, among all of those people, those who are living inside the building. And everyone is going to get his own share. He cannot enjoy his own, and I mean, he cannot ask for somebody else portion, right? That is what does it means by a multi-tenant and a governor limit. So why there is a governor limit? Because resources are equally shared inside the Salesforce. The resources are equally shared among all organizations. There are multiple Salesforces built up on a multi-tenant architecture-based system, where inside one server there are multiple organizations. Organizations are used to be called as tenant, and therefore we can call this as multiple organization or a multi-tenant architecture. And because there are multiple organizations, so that the resources should be get smoothly distributed, they should be equally distributed between all of the organization. This is the reason there is a governor limit. That was one thing. Now second, when you came to know about that there is only one standard table inside database.com, is there any possibility that data is going to be one organization data maybe accidentally got exposed to another organization? Is there any chance? The answer is no, because the organization ID would act as a primary key. The primary key of this differentiation, this data belongs to which organization. So whenever one organization would store anything or retrieve anything from database.com, every organization, because it's having its own organization ID, it can only access that data. It could only access that data where the organization ID belongs to it. I mean, where the same organization ID is there. And it cannot access, this organization cannot access the data of some another organization because the organization ID is different. All right. So that is the most important fact. How it's not possible that once one organization's data would going to be exposed to another organization. All right. It's entirely not possible. Now, this is all that we have studied in the last lecture. Let me come to the second point of this, and that is the license overview. I started this with the last lecture. I told you that there are two different forms of user, internal user and the external user. Internal users would have internal license. External users usually have external license. I have given you one example. I've given you one example of Salesforce Chatter license. Actually, these all are the licenses. These all are the different forms of licenses we have. These all are the different forms of the licenses we have. I've given you one example, like, the Chatter free license. For example, if there is a news collecting agencies like Times of India, and for example, they're having their reporters who wanted to submit the report, they would just require to access only one area, and that is what the collaboration cloud, I mean, this Chatter area. This is the only place what I wanted to them to be get access. So Chatter license is one of the form of external license that you can give to somebody. He could only access Chatter. There are another forms of this. I'm going to show you right now today something called as community cloud. That's not a part of discussion, but I wanted you to understand. I mean, just to extend your knowledge a little bit about this, I would be showing you like how you could create community. What does, first of all, a community means in Salesforce, and how extensively this has been used. Let me try to, first of all, show you something. See, the community cloud is also called as digital experiences, right? Community cloud is also called as digital experiences. Now, community is that feature of Salesforce. Listen this, everyone. I hope nobody is slipping. Community is that feature of Salesforce, community cloud. Digital experiences, there are two names for this. Community is that feature of Salesforce by which you could build up, what to say, the vibrant applications, something that we try to show you an example. Like if you go with the IDFC, bank website, I think this entire website, what you are looking to, this is built up on a Salesforce community. This front end, even this front end also, whatever you are looking over here, this looks like to be a website. But this actually is not. I mean, for us, it's not a website. For any common user, he could say, "Arey, ये तो एक website जैसा है." हाँ, of course, ये website ही है, because it being launched on www. But internally, this is being built up with a feature called as community. Community is that extensive feature of Salesforce where you could build up something called as a web page, something called as a website on our community pages. This entire is built up on the community, right? Similarly, if you go with Redbus, this Redbus application, what you see, although the front end is having a little bit of other technologies as well, the front end over here is built up with maybe with React or Node, I'm not sure. But in the back end, there is a Salesforce. In the back end, there is a Salesforce. And here also, Community Cloud is working up to a certain extent. This is although is a sandwich technology. This one is purely built up of community. There's no another technology apart from Salesforce is being used over there. I know this because I have worked. I worked, and that's the reason I know. So Salesforce community is that feature of Salesforce, where you could build up your vibrant kind of applications. I'll show you something. I recently got a requirement. Every Wednesday yesterday itself I was talking. I have a cab meeting for this night. I usually don't record this, but koi problem nahi abhi. What is a cab meeting? CAB stands for Change Advisory Board. Few of the terminologies you should be aware. Change Advisory Board. Yesterday night, when we were having a CAB meeting, this is one requirement this has been given to me. Let me try to first of all pull it out. This one. Now, enable the digital experiences in Sandbox to test the creation of Experience Cloud and allow out-of-org use of the service. Actually, I'm not sure whether you know this or not. There is one application called as SurveyMonkey. Just try to understand, guys, कि हम Salesforce में हम कितने capable हैं. Or this is something what you can even, if you would practice onto this, आप अपने resume पे डाल के इसके बारे में आगे बात कर सकते. SurveyMonkey is one of the application. And these guys in the NIDAC, they are having a licensed version of this. They are paying $1,200 per year for this, right? They are paying $1,200 per year for this license copy of SurveyMonkey. They would circulate one form to their customers whenever any deal has been closed. NIDAC would give a form to their customers and they would request them to rate their services. And you have usually done this. हमारे यहाँ भी होता है ना, ऐसा तो आपने भी देखा होगा. Maybe you got, आप अपने गाड़ी को अपने सर्विसिंग को डाला होगा, या फिर आपने कुछ कहीं से कुछ अप्लायंस परचेस किया होगा. They would ask you to fill up a small form of their survey so that they would understand कि हाँ हमारा where we क्या are we able to provide essentially a good service to our clients or whatever, right? So SurveyMonkey is one of that application which would provide you this functionality, by the way. All right. So there are paid version, there are free versions as well, but these guys were using paid version of that. Now, it was a discussion going on, like they asked, somehow they came to know about that in a Salesforce, there is a built-in functionality called digital experiences, Community Cloud. One second. And with this functionality of the Salesforce, we could build up a form for the service. For right now, we are giving SurveyMonkey $1,200 in an year, but the same functionality could also be built up with the Salesforce, and that's a part of our license. We would certainly not require to pay anything to the Salesforce more to got this functionality. Only thing we would require to develop this. So yesterday it was like, actually इस पर काफी मर्तबा हमारी बात हुई है. कल ये concrete हुआ, and we now is being agreed that we would going to build up an application for circulating the service, and that we are going to be built inside digital experiences. inside Community Cloud. So this community cloud, first of all, is an extensive feature where you could build vibrant application for the web that is going to be launched in www. Every community application, whatever you would be created, ultimate aim is to get launched on www. On a web server. Understand? Whenever you build any application on community, it is going to be hosted. It is going to be hosted on www. It's as good as building your website. But that is more technical. That is more related to Salesforce. Now, whenever you built up a community, you wanted certain people should have an access to them. We are having so many different licenses for them. One is customer community login, customer community. There are so many licenses you can see. Customer portal, portal manager. These all are the license. These users are called as community user. These users are called as community user. So this license, chatter license, and the community license, these are some of the examples of external licenses. I'm definitely going to take you to the internal because that is the most important part. As an internal license, you're going to learn Salesforce license and the platform. These two are most important licenses. We're going to have a discussion. Actually, मुझे आपको यही पढ़ाना चाहिए और इसी से आपको आगे बढ़ना भी है. बट मैं चाहता हूं कि इस मूवमेंट में हम इस डिस्कशन को थोड़ा सा अलग ले जाएं ताकि आप कुछ ऐसी चीजें जानें जो जनरली बताई नहीं जाती हैं. जनरली इस पे बात नहीं होती unless and until you got an opportunity to work on them. तो मैं जो अभी जो डिस्कस कर रहा हूं, whatever I am discussing right now, actually it's यूजुअली कोई करता नहीं है. यूजर मैनेजमेंट पे इनकी जरूरत ही नहीं है, पढ़ाया नहीं जाता. लेकिन आपको फिर ये चीजें अगर आज आप नहीं सीखोगे तो मुझे नहीं पता, लेकिन कभी ना कभी इसकी जरूरत जरूर पड़ेगी. उस मोमेंट पे आपको पता ही नहीं चलेगा कि क्या करना. इसलिए आज एक डिफरेंशिएशन थोड़ा सा हम देख लेते हैं, उसके बाद ही हम आते हैं इंटरनल यूजर्स और उनके लाइसेंसेस पे. तो एज अ पार्ट ऑफ एज अ पार्ट ऑफ external users, mostly they are community or chatter users. They have a very limited access. You create a chatter user with giving him a chatter external license. It would have a very limited access. Every license, understand, there are so many licenses over here. आप देख सकते हैं काफी सारे licenses हैं. Gold partner, force.com, external identity, partner community, Salesforce platform, silver license, work.com. There are so many type of licenses. Why there are so many forms of licenses? Because there are so many different forms of users as well. And with every license, there is another form of access that is being provided to that user. Every license comes with a kind of access, and certainly we would require to learn every one of them. It would be a part of discussion. It would be a lengthy process. It would require certain times, certain experiences, so that you would understand कि यार इस लाइसेंस से क्या होता है, इस लाइसेंस से क्या होता है, इस लाइसेंस से क्या होता है. बट आई कैन सर्टेनली टेक यू टू 3 और 4 लाइसेंसेस जो हैं, जो मैंने काम कर रखे हैं. मैं आपको उनके बारे में बता सकता हूँ. एटलीस्ट जितना मुझे पता है उतना तो मैं बता ही सकता हूँ आप सभी को. So every license provide a different set of functionality. Every license provide a different set of functionality. Every license provide a different set of functionality. If you create a user called chatter user, उसको अगर आपने ये लाइसेंस दिया, chatter free license दिया या जो भी लाइसेंस दिया, he could only access a certain functionality of Salesforce, जैसे कि collaboration cloud, जैसे कि chatter. You created a user community and you give a license to this user. He could only access the community pages, and he cannot go beyond that. Whatever is available on a community page that you have built, he would only have the access to that feature of Salesforce, and he would not going to access any another form of feature. So it's always like, what kind of access you are having, that depends what license you hold, right? It's always like the same. Now, I would be showing you like how we can create a little bit of community. I'll try to, you know, I would ask Sachin to take this one session of yours on community because he has worked a lot on that. Probably for 2 years, if I'm not wrong, he worked on community cloud projects for two different banks. IDFC was one of them, and there was one of the bank from US. It's all uska naam bhul gaya main, but that was also something where he worked on communities, having a strong knowledge of that. I would ask him to take your session on that. But let me give you an idea, brief introduction I could give. Okay, how to set up a community inside an organization. Fortunately, it's available with developer edition as well. Otherwise, it's really difficult to show you this. But it's a big thing that collaboration, this community cloud, the digital experiences is available with inside a developer edition as well. So let's see how we can build up a community first of all. You would require to go in setup and then build and then customize. And here you would require to find something called as a digital experiences. You can go to quick find as well, and here you can type. I usually don't do this because I wanted you to learn the navigations as well. So मैंने देखो कभी भी आपको यूज करना नहीं सिखाया उसको, है ना? मैं इसलिए नहीं सिखाया, otherwise you will get, आपको उसकी आदत लग जाएगी and you would never know which option decides into where. So I always used to expand, the options to and make you understand about the navigation. So it's like setup, build, and customize. Inside the customize, you're going to see digital experiences. Expand this tab. There's only one because it's not enabled right now. After enabling this, you'll have a few more options over here. Right now, there's only one option called setting. Let me click onto that and enable the digital experiences. Enable the digital experiences. All right. Once you enable this, it would form a domain name. Don't worry. If you understand this, it's a good thing. If you don't understand, this is as good as your URL, nothing else. It's as good as your URL. All right. And then, okay. Yeah. So now success, you can now create your experience cloud sites. That means you can now create, how you can create your websites, your web pages. How many of them you could maximum create with this edition? See, governor limit. You could maximum publish 100 pages, not more than that. That's a governor limit with developer edition. I'm not sure about other one. I'll have to check it out. Now, if I go back to this digital experience, I can see there was previously there was only one option setting. Now we are having all these, all sites, setting, pages, templates, and themes and everything. Let me now show you. Let's try to create a page for this. I'm going with new. I'm creating a new web page. All right, I'm actually creating a community page, not web page. I'm creating a community page. So I clicked on this new button. And these are, the templates, what you wanted to select. There are so many of them. I am selecting customer service. This is the template. If you want to go back, you can go back with this, and any one of them you can select. All right. So you can select any one of them. I'm selecting this template and I'm clicking on to get started. So here, just try to give the name to this community. Your batch is 208. So I'm giving the name as 208. Or maybe like batch 208 community, and then create. So it would take certain time because internally it would develop all that frameworks, which is required to build up this page. So it would take time. Nobody would teach you. I'm telling you this. People would ask you for, to take the separate trainings for this all. It's almost done. All right. So this is something called as a workspace. Here you would have all those options, which would require to build up their community. And certainly it's actually a separate topic where you would require to take. I mean, if you really wanted to study this, you have to explore every options with this. So, right. I would take you to some of the basic things. You first of all would require to go to the builder so that you could build up your pages and all. And here, you know, I would first of all would require to select a theme. This is the theme which I have given. I mean, right. I can go with these all are the lightning options, by the way. See, if you wanted to bring something over here, there are so many options for that. Let me try to show you. I'll first of all go with themes. Yeah, I'm changing the theme. Let's select this one. If I would be selecting Cypress. All right, so this is going to be my theme of this page. See, now this is something. All right, now this is, let me try to show you this. It's going to be look like this, right? This word is going to be get removed. Now, this is something like building your own web page, right? If you wanted to bring something over here, there are so many options for this. You can bring up a lightning component, could be an aura, could be an LWC. You can also bring up the visual force component, but that is an outdated thing. Usually, whenever we build up a community, if it required to bring the component, it's usually an LWC or maybe an aura. Now, I could have I could bring certain things over here. Like, I mean, this is how you manage everything. This is how you manage everything. Where is that option here? I just forgot. Now, for example, I'm just trying to put up something over here, calendar. All right. See, I just have brought one component, I mean, without coding, and I just wanted to see use few of the things. So, all right. In the Salesforce, we have something called as a calendar, right? In the Salesforce, we have something called as a calendar. So I brought that calendar over here. All right, I brought that, and you can add few more features. Like you can add the tabs. For the tabs inside the tabs also you can bring something. Let me try to bring like feeds over here. Feeds over, yeah. So record ID, yeah. All right. So it's something like it's something like just dragging and dropping the feature. All right. And the screen flows, if you have built up any screen flow, that there are so many different types of that. So you can bring the screen flow over here as well. If you have any screen flow, you can bring up the activities like your task and events also, you can bring up it over here. All right. So this is something like, it's kind of drag and drop. Actually, more, this is a kind of study you'll have to make on this. But this is how, we built up the community pages. It would certainly require some programming efforts as well over here. अभी जैसे मुझको बोला है सर्वे फॉर्म बनाने के लिए, तो I would require to interface this with some of the internal objects of Salesforce as well. So that would be a programming effort over here. All right. But yes, of course, that could be done. All right. So this is the way, guys, you built up a community. You built up a community. And once you have done with this, you can publish that. Once you publish, you can present it. Without publishing, you cannot present it. Now, once you publish it, for example, you publish it with this domain, all right? And once you publish, you could now ask the users to access this community. Now again, there is open community and closed community. Now open, if you don't put up any passwords, if you don't wanted any authentication, you just by passing that URL, just by passing that URL. I mean, if I go back to this, if it's an open community, you can just give the domain to them, and that way it's like, anybody could access your community. See, if you make it closed, in that case, you first of all would have to create the users inside the Salesforce, and those users could only access that community. So there are multiple forms of community, like partner community, customer community, open community, closed community. All right. But with the feature of Salesforce, one of the feature called as Experience Cloud, digital experiences, we can build up our own communities. It's a separate study where you would require how to add the components, how to create the components, and how to do the adjustments on site the pages and everything. But this is how it was, just an idea, like how you can create your own community pages, and you certainly don't require any separate license for this, right? That's all. Now see, users, there are of two types. Let's come back to the final discussion. Internal and the external users. Internal users pe to I'm going to take this discussion from tomorrow onward. Examples of the external users are chatter user and community user. Chatter users are those users who can access collaboration cloud feature, chatter feature. Community users are those users who could access the community pages. So if there is a community page, you wanted somebody would have an access. You first of all would require to create a user called community user. There are multiple forms of community users. Depending upon what form of community, what form of user you have to provide him accordingly one license. So these are some of the examples of external users. All right. These are some of the examples of external user. Now in the next lecture, I'm going to start with the internal, that is Salesforce and platform license. We're going to start from here by tomorrow morning. I cannot take your question because I have only 2 minutes for the next batch. Thank you so much for joining. Have a good day.